Introduction: New Orleans Voodoo, often referred to as Louisiana Voodoo, is a rich, living spiritual tradition. Born from the collision of African spirituality, French Catholicism, and Native and European folk magic, it is a system rooted in community, ritual, healing, and reverence for the spirits and the dead. Despite centuries of misunderstanding and misrepresentation, Voodoo remains one of New Orleans' most defining cultural expressions. This report explores its origins, evolution, major figures, and modern-day practices. West African roots. Origins. Voodoo traces back to the traditional religions of West African peoples, especially those in present day Benin, Togo, and Nigeria. The spiritual system, known as Vodun, honors a supreme creator and a vast pantheon of intermediary spirits called Loa, each tied to natural forces or human endeavors. Spiritual continuity. Enslaved Africans brought these beliefs across the Atlantic during the transatlantic slave trade, preserving core ideas like spirit possession, ancestor veneration, herbal healing, and sacred music and dance. Haitian influence and migration. The Haitian Revolution. The success of this uprising against French colonial rule in Saint-Domingue led to a wave of Haitian immigrants, formerly enslaved and free people of color, arriving in Louisiana. Transmission of practice. These newcomers infused Louisiana Voodoo with new ritual structures, drumming traditions, and terminology. Haitian Voodoo brought with it a formal priesthood and a liturgy rooted in both African and French Caribbean influences. Syncretism with Catholicism and folk traditions. Catholic overlay. To preserve their religious practices under slavery and colonial scrutiny, practitioners often synchronized African spirits with Catholic saints. For example, Legba became associated with Saint Anthony and Urzuli with the Virgin Mary. This allowed Voodoo to survive under the guise of Catholic worship. Hoodoo versus Voodoo. Though sometimes confused, Hoodoo is a system of African-American folk magic centered on root work and conjure. It often overlaps with Voodoo practices, but is not a religion itself. Hoodoo draws from African, Native American, and European influences, and is generally used for practical, personal outcomes like healing, protection, and luck. Marie Laveau, in the 19th century flourishing Marie Laveau, known as the Voodoo Queen of New Orleans. Laveau was a free woman of color who became the most famous voodoo practitioner in American history. She blended Catholic ritual, spiritual healing, and African traditions to serve a diverse client base. Ritual locations. While she is famously associated with St. Louis Cemetery No. 1, where her tomb remains a pilgrimage site, her public ceremonies were more often held at Congo Square and on the shores of Lake Pontchartrain, especially during St. John's Eve. Ceremony style. Laveau's events often featured bonfires, drumming, dancing, and spirit invocation. These gatherings attracted people from all walks of life, and her reputation for healing, prophecy, and justice gave Voodoo an enduring place in the city's spiritual fabric. Suppression and misrepresentation. Moral panic. As racial and religious tensions escalated in the early 1900s, Voodoo became increasingly demonized. White authorities and sensationalist newspapers painted it as dangerous, primitive, or satanic. Legal crackdowns. Police targeted practitioners' homes and shops, while laws restricted spiritual and herbal practices. This forced many ceremonies underground. Tourist exploitation. At the same time, tourism industries began to market voodoo in distorted ways through voodoo shows, souvenir dolls, and tales of curses and zombies, further detaching the image from authentic practice. Mid-century revival and academic recognition. Folkloric and scholarly work. Starting in the 1950s, researchers like Zora Neale Hurston and Maya Deren began studying and documenting voodoo rituals and oral histories. Their work validated voodoo as a legitimate and complex spiritual system. Genuine practice and tourism. As New Orleans began embracing its multicultural roots, voodoo museums, shops, and temples emerged. Authentic houses of worship called houndfers, led by houndgins or mambos, quietly sustained traditional ceremonies behind the scenes. Voodoo today. Community, ceremony, and education, ceremonial life. Contemporary practitioners host rara festivals, hairstyle gatherings, and grease crafting sessions. Music, especially the sacred drum rhythms played to summon specific Elwyn spirit possession, remains central. The role of the loa. During rituals, a loa may mount a devotee, causing them to dance, speak, or move as the spirit takes control. These possessions are considered sacred visitations. Education and advocacy. Groups like the Voodoo Spiritual Temple and Sacred Music Society aim to educate the public, promote respectful practice, and correct myths. Cultural identity. For many, voodoo is a living practice of ancestral pride, personal empowerment, and communal healing. Key features of New Orleans voodoo. Loa. Each has a unique personality, symbols, colors, and preferences. The vase symbols. Ritual drawings made with cornmeal or flour to represent and invite specific loa into the ceremony. Spirit possession. A core part of voodoo worship viewed not as loss of control, but as sacred, temporary merging with the divine. Herbal and root work, blending African and folk healing traditions. Herbalism is used for protective charms, baths, and healing rituals. Ancestor veneration. Honoring the dead is central to all ceremonies, and ancestor altars are maintained in homes and temples. Conclusion. New Orleans voodoo is not a relic or tourist sideshow. It is a resilient spiritual system that survived slavery, religious suppression, and cultural distortion. With roots in West Africa and Haiti, and shaped by New Orleans' unique Creole identity, voodoo continues to be a vital force in the spiritual and cultural life of the city. Whether practiced in quiet altars or lively communal ceremonies, it remains a testament to the power of ancestral knowledge, adaptation, and spiritual endurance.